Jason Gill, you look like you're in a spaceship.
I do. I am.
Yeah, you are. Is anybody getting, we're in the same room, but on opposite sides of the room. Is anybody getting a little feedback? Or are we good? Can you say something, Jason?
Well, when I talk, you could mute later.
Okay, that sounds great. So, everybody, I'm very excited to introduce you to a very longtime buddy of mine, Jason Gill. Jason has a amazing company called StreamOfConsciousness.ca, and he has I'm going to post the link there. I'm going to share this. So, Jason, can you just tell us a little bit about what you do and have been doing at Stream of Consciousness for the last uh, lot of years? It's been a long time. I've lost track.
Yeah, 10 this year. Oh, there she is.
There it is. Here's your spaceship.
Um, well, it's nice to be with you all. I don't see any familiar faces. I think Tara, I recognize you. Have we shared space at some point? Yeah, hi. Um, I have two small businesses. Sunset Labs is the physical studio that we're inside of right now. Some of you may have been here over the years. I've had Sunset for 20 years. And Stream of Consciousness I birthed 10 years ago. Hey, maybe mute your mic now for a sec, Brad.
Good idea.
And Stream of Consciousness, I was producing a lot of events and conferences and summits, and I was really frustrated by how something amazing would happen, some amazing conversation would occur, and either you were there for that or you weren't. You missed it. And the birth and emergence of live streaming and sort of the consumer availability of professional level live streaming was so compelling to me. And so I launched Stream of Consciousness. I ran a crowdfunding campaign. I did a $50,000 all or nothing crowdfunding campaign. So if we raise 49, we get zero. And we raised 53 grand or something. And I told the world, if you like this idea, I will buy the equipment and launch the company. And the community said yes to that, and Stream of Consciousness was born. And yeah, about 10 years. Oh, what happened to that picture? Um, and yeah, over the last 10 years, we've um, it's been amazing. It's been like really, really beautiful in the world, and the you know production world, the event world has responded well. We've traveled the world with Eckhart Tolle. We've gone to France with Carolyn Mace. We did the first ever broadcast to the IMAX screens all across Canada. We've done 5 years of Pink Shirt Days National Anti-Bullying Campaign broadcast to 400 elementary schools across the country, full of thousands of kids. Um, and then helped a lot of emerging content creators, speakers, teachers, authors, coaches, kind of find their voice, increase their professionalism, and produce sophisticated virtual and hybrid events. Sunset Labs now, in the last year, has become the most sophisticated studio on the West Coast. I think I don't know of anyone else out here that can do what I can do now. We've put a lot of energy into it, and we're producing really cool summits and workshops and hybrid events. Um, I can show you a couple of photos. Brad, do you want me to screen share? Um, you just need to turn that on for me. Can you see the room, the studio there? Great. So yeah, so this is like Sunset Labs. This is in a theater hybrid event. We're streaming out in multi-camera and also have about 70 people in the room. This is actually the Pink Shirt Day broadcast I was talking about. So they do it like a talk show, and there's kids all across Canada watching the broadcast, and they're playing games. And so this is a virtual event. There's nobody in the room. We're just streaming out online, and the talent can see their PowerPoint presentation. They can see the run of show. They can see the guests. They can see the broadcast. There's a smart clock doing a countdown timer. I can kind of assign anything to any screen that we want in the studio. I have a new mobile broadcast platform for when we go outside of the studio. This is a really cool recent Indigenous meetup between Coast Salish leadership with Australia Aboriginal leadership and New Zealand Maori leadership, having a three-nation dialogue about economics through an Indigenous worldview and sort of where the world's going for them. Um, this is a hybrid classroom model, so we can seat 40 in this way. So this is a hybrid event. There's people in the room, there's people online. Um, this was a roundtable that we did for the Pacific Institute of Climate Science. We had 20 scientists in the room and then climate scientists across Canada. And we had like 20 microphones open. It was a crazy technical scenario. But they were basically having a meeting. They were having a 50-person bilateral pre-publication knowledge sharing across their fields and share what are we learning and what does the fire information provide to the landslide guy and what does the drought information provide to the ocean scientist. And yeah, it was wild, depressing but wild. The booth I'm sitting in right now, some of our equipment, and then this is our virtual event system, which is how the room is set up right now. And so this is what it looks like now when talent is on stage and we're doing a virtual event and they're speaking to their online community. We can see the chat on the far right. On the bottom is communications from the producer. So if I want to say something to whoever's on stage, PowerPoint presentation, the broadcast, like what's actually going out online. So this is like a camera shot plus the PowerPoint, and then the remote guests so that whoever's on stage can see their community. So yeah, I'm loving it. It's like really fun. I didn't really mean to launch like a technical company. I'm passionate about the content, but I've ended up becoming really proficient in the tech in order to steward the content that I want to share with the world and that I want to amplify. Stream of Consciousness's tagline is amplifying the emerging wisdom of the world. And so we seek conversations that matter, and I point cameras at those. There's the simple version of my world.
That's beautiful. Thanks for giving us a tour. It's so impressive on how this has evolved over the last decade and all the conversations you have pointed the cameras at and shine a spotlight on. Um, Everybody here are the types of people who need to have cameras pointed at them. And that's what they're doing. Like everybody who's coming through the Magic Mind is creating signature workshops. They're touring those virtually and in person, but a lot of them are, the goal is to tour them virtually. And so I'm just curious for everybody getting into it. The majority are using Zoom. I would say probably 99.9% of people are using Zoom to facilitate online. If you have any best practices that you would recommend for people that are getting into Zoom that are just like, you got to make sure you're doing it this way to give people the best experience and also the best outcome with the recording afterwards when you put it up on YouTube or something like that to build your following and fans.
Yeah. Yeah, it struck me when we were talking earlier about Brad, just briefly about like what would bring the most value to this group. This is a really small group, so I somewhat feel like we can just ask you and you tell me. Like, I'm happy to drop into Zoom and to talk about Zoom. The other thing that jumped out for me that maybe would be a valuable conversation to you would be talking about audience engagement, how to keep people really present and interested and engaged is something that I've learned a lot about. And then tech, we could certainly talk about cameras and audio and like I don't know how much of that Brad's covered. Brad has a bunch of those muscles too. Um, but yeah, can I just do a quick litmus test? Like, do you have a sense of would you like to talk about Zoom or like audience engagement or technology and equipment?
I think Zoom first,
Okay.
because I think it's an important piece, and I've never gone through all like, here's the Zoom settings that you should make sure you pay attention to do this
Mm,
right. I think audience engagement is a great one, is like, if you're facilitating a 60-minute workshop, how do you make sure that people stay till the end so that you get the whole experience for them? So let's go with those two, and then we could talk about tech if people have tech related questions.
okay.
I feel like those first two definitely apply for 100% of the room. And
Cool.
then everybody, if you have questions come up, feel free to just either unmute yourself or share. And Jay, I'm going to put this out on YouTube as well. So there'll be lots of other people that check this out.
Cool. Well, the Zoom and the tech conversations are somewhat merged because there's a lot of relationship between the equipment that we're using and and the experience that a guest is having on Zoom. So, um, couple things about best practices for Zoom. So first of all, one thing is like to stay on top of what Zoom is doing. Um, I often get impacted by changes to the Zoom platform where they don't really communicate. Like an update rolls out, but they've made three significant changes. One recently was they added the addition of the password to the link that needs to go out for certain rooms. And so suddenly I had guests arrive into a room and they didn't have a password because 2 days earlier they didn't need one. So my first bit of coaching to you is like is when you update Zoom to actually look at what are the updates that are happening and to do a test and if there's a time between an update and an event you're hosting that's public, do a test. Uh, do a test the link, send it out to some people, make sure that they can join, like just like make sure you're protected. It's a really poor customer service experience to have them arrive to the link you gave them and have them not get in or have them, have it go weird. Um, Recording, like inside of Zoom settings, you can auto record to the cloud, and then you can also record to your computer once, as your event starts. I like auto recording to the cloud because it certainly happened that I forget to press record and a whole event goes by. That's super useful, and suddenly you don't have it. So if you go into your record settings and just select auto record, and what I like to do, so some people will just publish it the way it was, and some people really appreciate post-production control. I'm a video editor, and my team are editors, and so we like to have granular control. I might take like Anthony's face and put it next to the PowerPoint that he's talking about, and I can do lots in post that I can't do live, or that is trickier live. So in Zoom, you can actually record multiple things. I can record the ISOs of every single individual person. I can record the gallery, which I'm looking at now, the six of us. And I can record the speaker view. So it changes every time a new speaker comes on. I record all of those because in post-production, I want to show the gallery when we're all laughing, and then I want to show, Katie when she's sharing her story, and then I want to go back to the speaker view when we're doing a roundtable. And if you're recording everything in Zoom, you have flexibility. For some people, that's totally overkill, and you just don't want to manage that. But as you start to think about ways that you would reassemble this, even 4 years from now, if you nailed something and 2 years later you have the time, the resources, and you're like, oh, I'd like to reassemble that kit and like put that workshop back together. If you have the ISO recordings of all those layers, it really gives you some flexibility. So sometimes it's fun to just record everything, dump them into a bin, label them properly so that you can find them easily, and then it's a rainy day project for later if you wish.
So on that note, is there a
Question.
setting
I
you
have a
can do
question.
that records all of the different views, the speaker view, the gallery
Yeah,
view, etc.? So
yeah.
where's that setting?
Well, let's find out together.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's under recording. So under settings, under recording. Let's see.
And are you in like Zoom.us and in the back office, or where are you looking at this? If you
I'm in zoom.us.
Can you show us your screen?
Yeah.
Just so we can, because then this will be recorded and we can use this as a reference. Because I did not
Um,
know you could do that.
And if you are recording all of those three and you don't edit, what shows up in the actual recording?
well, they all show up. And then you just need to know which file is which. So you'll hit play on each of those 6 files and you'll be like, oh yeah, it's this one. So here you go. Here's my backend Zoom. So I'm in settings. You can see that on the left. And then on the top, there's all of these options. One of them is recording. So here's where I can record and change all of my recording settings. And if you come down here, cloud recording settings, record the active speaker with a shared screen. For me, that's yes. Record the gallery view with this shared screen. So that's the full gallery, the 10 of us or 49 of us, plus the shared screen. Record the active speaker, the gallery view, and the screen shared separately. Yup. And I will just add that one. which is a new setting that wasn't there to ISO record before, and now it is. You can
So
record separate.
the shared screen recording one, what does that just records like just a full screen of whatever slides
Yep,
you're showing?
that would be my shared screen right now would come in as a separate file.
Amazing.
So again, like this is like post-production magic. It's like it just gives you all those muscles later to do what you want with. And here you can see how granular it gets, like record a separate audio file for each participant. So if I just want, if Jeff nailed some amazing presentation and I just want the video of Jeff's screen share with Jeff's words, it also allows like gifting and like I can go and reassemble things and pass them back to people. We do a lot of that kind of stuff where we just do mixed assembles of things that happened and gift it to people that participated. Sometimes we don't have a lot of cash flow to be generous with, but sometimes like I can put in an hour and make an asset that's going to make a difference for somebody for a year or two. So there you go. So there's the settings.
That's super cool. Katie has a quick question, then I have another question while you're in that. So we'll probably call you back into there. So Katie says, how large are those files? My guess is pretty big. And if you save them to the cloud, how long will they store them? I know Zoom has limits. I delete my cloud all the time after I'm done with the footage personally.
Yeah, Zoom storage, you want to relate to it like a temporary storage. It goes up there for a little bit. Most of us hit our cap on our account size, so you have to clear that out. So you just have to like, I have a monthly calendar reminder to purge Zoom. So I go in, I download everything, and then I delete it all from Zoom. And I just make sure that like labeling is so important. Like you want to like put it in the right place, label the folder, label the files, like make sure that later when you go back to look at these weird, because the files that Zoom produces is GXM5784, like it's just they're gobbledygook. But if you label them and put them away nicely, like it's really easy to work with them later. And you're like, oh, I just need the speaker view.
I'm just
Beautiful.
thinking, like, I mean, I have huge storage, but even huge storage could get eaten up pretty quickly. Like,
These file sizes are not that big. Zoom for most of us is 720p. So you'll have, 5 video files at 720p, which is they're gonna be under a gig each.
but if I have Zooms pretty much every day.
Yeah.
So if I save every day times 5, that's going to be a lot.
Well, if you have Zooms every day, it's unlikely you're gonna go back and do a bunch of post-production on those files every single,
Exactly. It would be 1 out of, 50.
so it's like sometimes it might be like recording and all you're doing is like on a whiteboard you're tracking which ones were particularly special or which ones somebody nailed something, or you're like, oh, there's an asset in here that I could extrapolate and build because that was so amazing. And you're like, okay, Thursday 22nd, keep everything else you're deleting. Like you're just like rolling it over. So you're recording for the potential of something amazing even if you never use it, and the rest delete, 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 delete. I'm
Right.
ruthless with my purging. Like I live in the world of video, and I live in the world of 4K high def video, multi-camera recording. Sometimes we're doing 6 or 8 cameras that we're recording. Like it's insane amount of storage. I have 50 terabytes of storage right here beside me. Like it's just like so much, and then massive cloud storage times 3, multiple redundant
Okay, you
backups.
win.
It's
You totally
it's
win.
it's unwieldy is what I'm pointing to. Like it's way too much. And so I am ruthless with my deleting. Like I'm like
Okay.
I don't need that, gone. Like nothing, that was not a magic
That's,
conversation,
yeah,
delete.
that makes sense.
I try to check in with people. I'm like, do you want that? Nope. Okay, great. Delete. Um
Okay.
but it's a discernment muscle. It's like, no, that one was
Yeah.
special. And like I'm gonna save that and then just creating a tracking system for yourself to differentiate.
I got another Zoom
Thank
settings
you.
question. This came up last week. A partner of ours at Sing to Thrive, she recorded this really fantastic class to her audience. It was all really high quality. And then she went to upload it to YouTube and it was totally grainy. All the quality was lost. So is there a space in Zoom settings that ensures that people maintain that crisp, clear quality that they're getting when they're live streaming?
Um, the Zoom recording is never going to be amazing. I never am using the Zoom recording as my primary recording. So that's just one thing to know, is that like the recording here is always kind of mediocre. What a lot of people do that get into like a professional Zoom recording before they get into studio work and having like a micro studio, but is that they send out from their webcam and they record to OBS before it goes to Zoom. So OBS is a free streaming platform. It looks a little complex and it takes a minute to get oriented to, but the level that I'm talking about using it is a very simple level. You're like, take in the feed, record that locally, and now send it to Zoom. So the recording that you get in this scenario is the highest resolution that your webcam can output of you. Your recording of you looks better. Zoom still has a function where it downgrades our collective resolution to the resolution of the person with the lowest camera, generally. So like if I'm sitting here on a 1080p camera, if there's half of us at 1080 and half of us at 720, the resolution of the recording is 720. So Zoom's working on that and trying to like clean up some of that, and so some of that may be changing, but it's worth noting that a Zoom recording is kind of always mediocre. Another level is like recording to the cloud is going to give you a slightly better recording as a rule than recording locally, because in the cloud, Zoom is recording it to Zoom servers with Zoom equipment. Locally, all of your guest signals are coming through the internet, through your internet to your computer, and then the recording is happening at the same time as you're streaming. So your computer's multitasking with two big video files. So the cloud recording tends to be superior. So just know that when you're recording. And then I suspect most of you know that in the bottom left here under video, if you go into video settings, there is right away a high def HD button sitting there. And so you just want to make sure that HD is turned on.
Are you talking about in Zoom.us?
Right here in Zoom, yeah, and not the back end settings, the front end interface here. At the bottom left, there's the microphone and the camera.
Yeah.
And if you click the little up arrow next to the camera, you can go to video settings. And right at the very top of the video section, mine defaults to the video section, not the general section above it, but video. Right at the very top, it says original ratio, yes. HD, yes. And that's the best that your local Zoom is going to produce for you.
Can you all see this little HD button?
No, we can't.
You can't see it? Well, just use your imagination, everybody.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Something else to know is that our Zoom accounts default to 720p. You have to request a 1080p connection. It's not granted by default unless you're buying the Zoom business or enterprise accounts, but Zoom and even Zoom Pro still defaults to 720, and all you have to do is hop onto the Zoom customer support, tell them that you're a professional content creator using Zoom for your content, and request the 1080p upgrade, and they'll give it to you. And that's a 30% upgrade in quality right out of the gate. But you have to ask for it.
There's a question here like Zencaster versus OBS. Any thoughts on that?
I haven't used Zencaster. I know of it. OBS is free, open source. It's pretty beefy. There's tons and tons of like live streaming systems that nest into Zoom and that Zoom can see as a camera source. So I can't speak to Zencaster specifically. If you do your homework online, you'll find like you'll be able to tell the difference between the ones that are reliable versus the ones that aren't. Like just do some comparisons.
And
a lot of people are using Restream, is the one that I know that everyone uses, because Restream allows me to push simultaneously to Facebook and YouTube and Zoom, and it's recording, and now LinkedIn. And so Restream is the most, Restream.io, I think, is the most common multi-streamer application that I know of.
amazing.
None of which I use. We're hardware mixing, so everything I'm doing is through equipment, physical equipment that's pushing out those multiple signals.
And with something like OBS, do you know if say a company like Stream of Consciousness could create a template uh, that you could then sell a template that people just buy the kit and then they trade out your graphics for their own. Like, is there an easier way to set it up that you're not doing it from scratch? Because I downloaded OBS in January with the intention of learning it, and then life got carried away. I was like, I just need somebody to help take this torch and get it set up. Because like all the workshops I'm teaching these days, OBS would be very, very helpful to be able to like see my chat, go back and forth between my slides, my audience view, all the things, which I do a little bit manually in Zoom, but I know in OBS it would be way better because I've seen it done and it's just like magic and it looks way more pro.
Um, there's a fella that I really like who's like the OBS pro, and his name is Philippe. His project is called Inside the Show, and I'm dropping it in the chat. Um, Philippe does that kind of thing. His offerings, including he does a free 3-day OBS crash course, which is amazing. It happens once a quarter or so, so you have to watch for it but and he does that kind of stuff, and he does really cool. His advanced OBS work is like you're taking your Zoom gallery and you have a gallery, but then you make the person in the middle big, and then they're surrounded by the boxes of your guests, and then the guests start rotating around. Like he's like the pro of OBS based. Oh, there's exactly the image I'm talking about. Yeah. So yeah, so that's like an advanced thing, but it's also in OBS. So if you, which is free, and so if you start with OBS and just start to massage your way into it and get stronger and stronger, you'll find you later will be able to do some amazing things, including, and he does have templates and he does do exactly what you asked. Yeah, I don't, but people do.
Beautiful. Any other things that you would recommend that people just need to make? Oh yeah, the audience engagement. So, any suggestions on like how do you keep people for a full 60 minutes if you're doing a signature workshop?
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe just a couple more quick Zoom things. One is
Sure.
like I always turn off allow people to unmute themselves. But I'm in a broadcast environment, so like if we have 1,000 people, we had 1,200 people on the line for a recent an event last week or 2 weeks ago, and um, yeah, you can imagine what would happen if you let people unmute themselves. Um, um, Chat, like, do you want them to chat with everybody? Do you want them to chat with just the hosts? So down in chat settings right here, I can click on, actually Brad can because he's the host, and he could change it so that we can all chat with each other, or so that we can only chat with the host. So like if there's something I need to say to the host, but not distract people with conversation to each other, like it just depends. But it's good to know those kind of options exist. Increases our flexibility. Sometimes we have a lot of projects where people will turn on the chat and then there's come a time when they turn it off and then it comes back on. You've probably been to events like that. Um, and so it's just like that's the event host kind of managing the flow a little bit, keeping people's focus and then letting them all socialize and then keeping people's focus. And um, let me think if there's anything else in chat. Without actually going through a full event setup, that's the stuff that jumps out for me about Zoom is recording. It's managing the flow of the thing, resolution. Often, by the way, like one of the most common breakdowns with resolution is actually smudge on the camera. Like you always have a microfiber cloth by you and give your camera a good clean before you go live. Especially with our cameras like right at the top of our laptops like that. Something I noticed today, which drove me I had a meeting yesterday. I couldn't believe it. I had this meeting yesterday with somebody important who was like having a really cool conversation about a year's worth of work, and they're a very successful person, and their laptop was on their knees, and I was getting seasick like the whole time. And 90-minute meeting, and they're just like moving around in the shot because don't do that. If you're here as a viewer, I think Tara, like your laptop's it was that made me notice it. But like I'm looking at you as a small gallery person and you're a guest, but when it's the host and you're there for 90 minutes, oh my God, it is really full. I was like looking away because it was so uncomfortable. I was getting like, so just a note to yourself, don't do that.
What is your feeling on blurry backgrounds? I personally can't stand a presentation that has a blurry background. Feels like they're hiding something. But that's a personal thing.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. On Macs now, there's if you have a Mac that's updated in your OS, you can actually just turn on studio lighting, and which does a soft blur to the background, but not the big blur that Zoom backgrounds does that Jeff has on right now. It's like so I'm not a fan of the artificially blurred out, but a soft, a little subtle blur. It's nice to like get to take people away from like analyzing your whole world and like just getting immersed in your backdrop. Sometimes like Cynthia, Megan, you have really clean, minimalist backdrop. It looks great, right? So it's like you can get away with that because like blurry, not blurry doesn't matter because it looks great. I would just say the same thing of Katie, like your room looks really great. Your your camera is too high, so it's looking down on you, and you basically want it at eye level. So you've and there's now a lot of
I
data
know.
about yeah. There's
I
now a
have
lot of
dealt with this for years. This is a huge thing. I know.
yeah, yeah. By the way, you can get I don't have one right here, but I use a little teeny monopod, a really skinny one. I put my webcam on it and I put it in front of my monitor. And I'm looking, my camera's right in front of my monitor. And so when I look at any of, right now it's not, I've got it just sitting on top. But if I was presenting, it's literally dead center of my monitor. And then anyone I look at, generally the experience you're having is I'm looking right at you and it's at eye level.
You called it a monopod?
Yeah, it's just a little baby desktop tripod. It's like a $19, and you want to get the lowest, the most minimalist one you can. You want it to be invisible so it's not in the way and whatnot.
Yeah.
And now they also have drop down ones that hang on top of the monitor and drop 4 inches. And so instead of coming up, you can drop it down. But the effect is the
Okay.
same. You're putting the camera right center of your monitor, basically.
Thank you. That
Um,
is really helpful. That
yeah.
is like so helpful.
So, and sometimes like minimalist background, like there's one guy whose workshops I go to, and he's in a workshop. It's a crazy background. It's super, super busy, but it totally fits. So it's like it's not that one is better, it's that we all have a different fit. So it's figuring out like what's your vibe and really cultivating that space. I never produce from sitting in the booth like this, and if I was to, I would like turn it into a set and do some uplights behind my gear, and like I would, but I never sit over here for if I'm actually doing a talk or something. I have a whole nice studio that I can look much on real cameras and stuff. So
And there's something
first
fun about like set design. If you're going to be doing a lot of workshops in your home or in your office, is to like find a spot where you're going to be doing your teaching from and be intentional about what's going to be behind you. It
yeah.
doesn't take a lot of space, but you can be creative with it, and it helps people to sink into the vibe, and it's nice.
Oh, Anthony, that's a great question. Second screen. I can't say enough about having two monitors. It's like if you're rocking one monitor, you're so constrained. If you introduce a second monitor, the amount of flexibility that you'll have in Zoom and out is just a world of you'll never go back. You'll just never go back. Here's some specifics. So one specific is I can have the gallery view on one, and I can have the person I'm speaking to on the other. The most common is I have the PowerPoint on the one I'm looking at and the gallery view to my right, or I have them, side by side with the camera in the middle. So there's still like no matter where I'm looking, I'm center-ish on my line of sight, but I can see my presentation and I can see the gallery view. Um, um, and often what happens is like if you're talking at an event, you get spotlighted, right? So it's like Brad would be spotlighting me, which forces the view of me onto you. Like all that you would see is me, and you don't have a choice in the matter. Now it's the presenter. If you have two monitors, you can still create a gallery view of the guests next to that. You can pull out the spotlight and do a gallery view. If you go into settings, this is back into video settings here in Zoom. I think it's in general. Yep, at the very top of general is use dual monitors. which introduces some flexibility. It does some weird things too that like sometimes work for you and sometimes don't, that you have to orient to. Like for example, if I have used dual monitors on and somebody screen shares, their screen share automatically populates to monitor 2. So sometimes that's really cool. Like I've got my gallery view here, somebody screen shares. Oh, I don't have to do anything. It's all handled for me. Zoom's managing it. But sometimes it's like, oh, where did my PowerPoint go? Because somebody screen shared. Like, so you'll just have to orient to that over time. And but 2 monitors is just a killer. Plus, sometimes speaking notes, like you'll have all your speaking notes on one, your outline for your course, whatever you're delivering, but still need to see people's faces. Like you need to stay oriented. Is this landing? Or do you have traction? Are people with you? Or is everyone multitasking? Like, is it working? And the only way that you know that is if you can see their faces while having your reference material. Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same thing as in the studio. You saw the photos of my virtual event system. We have all those monitors. Most of those monitors are so that a talent can see everything they need to see at the same time. And so in my room, that's 9 big screens up there for them. I want them to be able to just glance at chat and see what's going on. I want them to be able to look at the PowerPoint and see if it's queued up. I want them to see their next slide that's coming up. I want them to see communications from me. Oh, you have 10 minutes left, or your fly is open, or whatever needs to be communicated quickly. So the simple version of that is like, what resources do I need to see at the same time? And what does it take to accomplish that? So sometimes it might be 2 monitors and an iPad. Like your notes might just be on an iPad in front of you, or yeah. Thanks, Sam. Does that feel okay, Anthony? Cool. You're familiar too. We've shared space as well, yeah? No? Don't recognize me? All right, sweet.
No, I don't think so. There's another thing though, when you share the screens, that you sort of like get double images, and it gets a little bit cluttered. Like I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, well, the thing like, you mean the infinity where it like zoom, where it sees itself and sees itself? Is that what you're saying?
No. It's sometimes I can see myself twice as well, or um I don't know how to explain it really. I
So
don't
if
know if it's
everybody clicks on share right now, share screen in the bottom of Zoom here. Now don't share anything, just look at the screen here with me. On the very top, you'll see screens, documents, and advanced. This is really useful to get oriented to, because some of the options, like I can see that I can share a specific screen, but then also like in Chrome, for example, I can share a specific tab. So I'm not sharing the whole screen, I'm sharing a tab. And so you really want to get oriented. And this is an example of Zoom changing all the time. This interface and like the options for what I can share changes pretty frequently. So you really want to get oriented to this and just test it. Get 4 of you together one day, and each of you play with Zoom. Test, try this, and just be there for an hour and play with Zoom and get to know things that you haven't played with before. If you click on advanced, there's a couple things here that I use all the time. So one is iPhone, iPad. I can directly stream my iPad from this cable. And so it does a screen share. So if I want to show you an app, or I want to show you a specific workflow on the iPhone, I can share that as a full screen, high def image here. The whiteboard is something I use a lot because I like to doodle. Oh, is that in documents? That's back on the documents one in the middle there. Under advanced, on the right-hand side, you'll see share sound and optimize for video. So if you share a video, but you don't share sound and optimize for video, you're going to get a gobbledygooked kind of video playing where the sound is imperfect because Zoom is listening for voices and it has its audio seek filtration system on, right? So you need to tell Zoom, I'm playing a video, leave the audio alone, please, and go. So yeah, so just Anthony, I would just say like play with your Zoom sharing and run some
yeah.
tests, and you'll find it. You'll get it figured out. What I like to do is have 2 laptops, and I'll have headphones on for the non-host. So the host is over here where I'm testing, and then I'm there as a guest. I'm a viewer in my own Zoom room. You can do this with just one person, and I'm listening to my guest computer, And so I share a video over here with audio on or with audio not optimized for video. And then I'm listening over here and I'm like, oh, I missed it. That's not it. And so even with two sources, two laptops or a laptop and a PC, you can do a whole lot of testing on your own. But I like to get a group together because we learn together and then we'll like, oh yeah, you'll figure something out that I didn't notice and so on.
What about, sorry, I've just seen this thing where I'm sort of like cut out on the screen. Um, that's really useful because people always complain with the presentations that you're like tiny little box in the corner.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
wow, that might work.
Yeah, you can add mustaches and beards and like there's all kinds of little things inside of Zoom if you want to play with it. Yeah, it's really handy. It's most of this stuff it's not eluding you at all. It's just that you haven't noticed it yet. It's sitting there and you just have to poke around long enough and Zoom changes. So I will be deeply oriented to Zoom and 2 days later I'm like, where is everything? So you just have to kind of stay on it a little bit. One more thing is up in the top right hand corner. Oh, you guys aren't hosts right now. So do you know the thing where it says original sound for musicians off and on? Right. So up in the top right, Brad, do you see it right now? Original sound for musicians? Top right of Zoom? Okay. So Brad, next to the mic on the lower left, click the little up arrow, and click on audio settings. And scroll down. Do you see audio profile? And you'll see original sound for musicians. So click on that. And now you can exit here. And now in the top right of Zoom, you should see original sound for musicians. Okay, so what original sound does, Zoom by default is filtering out background noise. There's always a background noise filter on, noise suppression by default on, which is crystallizing my audio and makes it sound clean. But if I play music for you or a video, all Zoom is doing is looking for voice. So all I have to do as a host is I click on, turn on original sound for musicians, and now it turns off noise suppression and voice isolation. And now Zoom gets whatever I'm sending it, which in my case is an audio mixer with a whole bunch of stuff happening. But here's my Spotify, and a nice clean, Spotify comes in, or my Creative Commons music for that or that particular show, and it comes in clean. On my desk when I'm broadcasting, there's two stickers on this notepad. One of them says record, 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 because in my case I'm recording multiple cameras. I'm recording on the Blackmagic equipment, so I have to hit record like on 6 things. So one of my notes says record, record, record. The other one says original sound on and off, because every time that I want to play music, I need to turn on original sound for musicians so that it stops messing with my sound. And every time we just move back into talking, I turn it off so it turns on voice isolation and noise reduction. Does that make sense?
So real quick, like the original sound for musicians, that would be like if you had a speaker and you wanted to play it through Zoom, because like I just go to advanced settings and I play like the audio through my computer and I'll share my Spotify or something like that while we're doing breakout exercises. So what would be the case where you would want to use the original sound for musicians versus when you use the built-in sound in the advanced settings?
If you're sending music into Zoom, so if the microphone that I've selected, you know how in Zoom you can select your different microphone and your different speaker? So right now the microphone that I've selected for Zoom is here. Normally the microphone that I'm using for Zoom is an audio mixer. Or it might even be just this cable, which is my iPad. So the microphone, so let's say we're going to go to break. We're going to be on break for 20 minutes. I want to send good music and I want to send it from my iPad. I just click Spotify, click turn on original sound for musicians, and now you all get a clean feed. And it sounds lovely. But if we come back and we start talking and I forget to turn original sound for musicians off, then I lose the noise suppression and you'll get some air hisses and some room noises and and you can't you can fix that in post, but you end up having to do a bunch of extra work. So hence Sticky notes.
And when you're using that original sound for musicians, are you leaving you're muting your microphone or you're leaving that on? Just so we know.
It depends on the application. Like, well, I did an event at UVic recently, which was a conference, and they had a bunch of breakout rooms and breakout tables. And so I turned on the music, but I left the room mic open because I wanted a little bit of walla. I wanted just a little bit of background room noise of people talking. I wanted people online. This comes back to engagement. I wanted people online to really feel that they're at an event and that there's hundreds of people having cool conversations right now. So I turned down the room walla. I'm using an open mic in the room, and I turn up the music. So that's an example of when a microphone stays open in the room while you're playing music. But it's not really common unless we're doing like a sing along or some other thing where you want both open at the same time.
That's a cool hack there. I like that one. Any engagement strategy stuff before we
Yeah.
wrap up here?
So a bunch of little bits on engagement. So the first is to understand that everyone that's attending our events has different needs, and we can't deliver in a single way to a room and have everyone have the same experience. Like, that's not how it works. Like, um, Tara's needs for participation, for um, she might be a kinetic learner. She wants to actually engage and type and share. And um, Katie may be an auditory learner. For her, the pristine quality of the audio is what's going to matter the most. Jeff might be really analytical and skeptical. He actually wants slideshows and data and graphs. Like, we all have different needs. And so as an event producer, as a content host, our goal is to try to give a little bit of everything, so that every different person with each different learning style is supported and feels like they've got something that they need. We're going to default to our way of communicating and to our learning style is typically how it's going to go. If you're an auditory learner, you're going to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. If you're a kinetic learner, you're going to type a lot, you're going to share files, you're going to be multitasking, you're going to be pulling up the whiteboard and doodling. Like, if you're a visual learner, you might show a lot of images or graphs. Like, we tend to teach in the way that we want to learn. But your audience doesn't have that choice. Like, we're giving them what we're giving them, and we're hoping that it lands. So the first layer of audience engagement is to understand that they have different needs, and that if you're not addressing them, then some people in your room are tuning out. Like, they're struggling to stay with you. So layer one is to understand they have different needs. Layer two is to begin to introduce those things, and you can just do like one at a time. So like, let's say you tend to sit there and talk for an hour, and you're sharing your stories and da da da. Maybe the first layer of engagement is every 20 minutes you do a micro Q&A. Here, like, Brad informed you that you can open up your mics. So for those of you who wish to share, you can unmute and just speak. And a few of you have done that. You can tell who likes to just doesn't want to type. You just want to say the thing. Also, he's been reading the stuff in chat. So for those of you that are in chat, you're feeling heard. Brad is listening to what happens in chat, sharing it with us into the room, speaking it to me if I didn't see it. You're feeling heard. I hope. Like, is that accurate? Are you feeling heard? So here's the hack. There's a cheat to this that's actually quite simple. The cheat to make sure that everyone's addressed is mix it up. Just mix it up. Throw up a graph and then talk for a little while and then do a Q&A and then make sure that you get a man's voice and a woman's voice, an old person's voice, a young person's voice, an indigenous voice. Like, just mix it up. Like, see what you can do so that whatever someone's needs are, it's likely that they're being addressed, and mix up the interface. Oh, we're going to do this in chat. Okay, everybody, let's move to reactions. I want to see, give me your best reaction for like how you feel in this moment. So go down to Zoom and like pick a thing. So you get the idea. Like the hack is just mix it up. If you just like mix it up and integrate a few little things here and there, it's likely that people that were tuning out or that you were losing, you've got their attention again. And then more specifically over time, you can begin to cultivate specific approaches to specific learning styles based on your target demographic, like who's in the room. We did an event for the Green Party. We did this giant rally for the Green Party, and let me see how I want to say this. So when we stream for Eckhart Tolle, my shots are close-ups, and we'll do an occasional room shot to set the context and straight back into close-ups. And we're almost always on close-ups. If you're a fan of Eckhart's work, all you're doing is listening to him. Your eyes might even be closed. Like you're just, and if you want to see him, you want to see him. You want to get the nuance of what he's saying because it's deep like that. It's the same when we're working with Stephen Jenkinson or Charles Eisenstein or something. There's people who you just want to drop in. When we're doing like TEDx or the National Geographic thing we did for kids or Pink Shirt Day for thousands of kids, we're like fast mixing, lots of cuts, dynamic. It's like we're trying to keep their attention. It's a totally different show. So there's a dramatic example of how different I produce based on the target audience in the room. So as you get oriented to who's in the room, you'll make different decisions about the composition of your offering. The speed, the music, the fonts you're using, the background you're sitting in, like it should all calibrate in some way to your intended audience. Oh, I mentioned the Green Party because of this. When we did the Green Party, I said, I always check in, how do you want us to mix the show? Normally we would do it like this. And they said, no, we're not targeting so everyone at the rally was like 60 years old. Like it was an older rally for sure. I've been to younger Green Party rallies. This wasn't. Everyone is older. And they said, no, we want you to do the live stream for the 15 to 25-year-olds that we want to encourage to get involved. And I'm like, okay, you understand that's a totally different show than what we would, like these people in this room, in this, we were outdoors, but in this field, would not watch that live stream. Like they'll get annoyed by it. And they're like, we totally get it, no problem. So we were doing this like dynamic, like uppity, and then we were grabbing people from the audience and putting them in, hey, why do you like the Green Party? It was like this whole other thing. That for sure the average 60-year-old, would have found frenetic and, annoying. But so that's just an example of like sometimes your show composition is for the audience you're intending, not the audience you have. And it's just worth noting that sometimes there's a discrepancy between people that are in the room right now versus actually what I'm trying to cultivate. Engagement. So when we do live productions, I almost always have an engagement person in Zoom, and that's their only job, is they're sitting in Zoom. And what I try to do is I try to make the Zoom process really fulfilling for people. And the Zoom audience engagement person has a couple of rules. The first layer is engage. Oh, that's a cool idea. Oh, where are you from? Oh, thanks for joining us, John. Just the simplest level is like socialize and connect and hang out with people. Have them feel like they're at an event. The fundamental goal, the core tenet is it has to be an event, not a YouTube video. It has to matter that it's live. Why is it live? Like, why am I here today at 2 o'clock instead of just on my own leisure watching it later? So the only reason why it matters that it's live is because there's engagement. There's something happening live that doesn't happen later. And so having somebody in Zoom that's like connecting, asking questions. So the first layer is engagement. The second layer is adding value. And so when we have a Zoom engagement person and the person on stage says, oh man, I went to this amazing retreat center last year with Gabor Mate, it was in Guatemala, boom, we're looking up what retreat center that was, what's he talking about, oh, he mentioned the name, grab that, here, for anyone interested, here's the retreat center he's talking about, boom, share. If we see that, like sometimes speakers will be like, "Oh, can you share that resource now?" And up comes a PDF. We grab that and reshare that like 4 times, like every 10 minutes. We're like, if you didn't catch it, if you didn't, here's that resource. Da, da, da. So we're trying to add value, add value, add value. So, and then the third layer is to extract value for us. Like someone's like, oh, I run a project like this that might be of interest to you guys. Great. What's that person's name? Where are they? Oh, that's amazing, John. What's your email address? Oh, thank you so much. That's great. Oh, Susan, can you tell me more about that? And so, yeah, so layer 1, engage. Layer 2, add value. Layer 3, extrapolate, extract information for us. Like what's happening in the chat that serves the content producers? What's happening in chat that serves stream of consciousness? Like who out there should we be networking with? So those are kind of like some layers.
And I learned a big lesson with the signature workshop training last year because we had 110 people registered, and the chats were insanity. Like when we would do a sharing, it was just like and be so many people sharing in the chat. And so I just got to the point where it'd be like, okay, I'm going back into teaching. If you're sharing in the chat, I'm gonna miss it, so you're gonna repost it later. I would just communicate that to people. It's like, I see the chat's going off. I am not paying any attention to the chat right now, just so you know. I
Mm-hmm.
am ignoring you consciously.
I have a friend who is the lead technical director for Tony Robbins. And so you can imagine what that world looks like. They just did an event, some of you may have been there in December with Matthew McConaughey. So it's Tony Robbins, Matthew McConaughey. The event was called The Art of Living with Matthew McConaughey, day long, 1.2 million people in Zoom. So they had to have Zoom on board. They had to have they were at Tony's virtual stadium that my friend helped design, and the chat. So multiple Zoom rooms, each capping out 1,000. Like do the math. What's that? 1,000 Zoom rooms at 1,000 people. Is a million. So there's a million of them. 1.2. So 1,000 Zoom rooms. Every single chat being recorded, dumped into macro files. you know. And Tony's team goes through they're watching every single chat and extrapolating ways to add value to those people and to see what's being offered to them that they want to retain. It's really robust and so there's always scales. Like there's like a Tony team up there, and then there's me in the middle, and then there's people that are just getting started in Zoom somewhere there, and we all have like different processes. But it's fun to think about like what's the next layer, and what's the low-hanging fruit for the next evolution of my usage of Zoom or my usage of virtual events. Like Zoom's just the platform, but virtual events is the medium.
And the main thing I think to remember everybody is like, okay, maybe you just did a signature workshop a week ago or this week or last week or in December. It's like the goal is to make micro improvements every single time you teach online. And so today we just did this. It's like, remember one or two or three of the things Jason said, write them down. If there's something in the Zoom settings you could go fix immediately and change, whether it's like the HD thing or whatever, go do that right after. And there's your upgrade that you just did. Then go do another teaching. And sometimes it might be slides. Like last week, I did my signature workshop on Monday this week. By the way, signature workshops work, everybody. I got 279 people on my email list from teaching a 60-minute workshop this week. It works. So just keep doing it. Keep at it. Um, but this one, I changed some slides around. I changed the order. I realized there was a newer, better order that I'd never done before out of my 38 deliveries of the workshop. And then I changed the call to adventure at the end to be a little bit different from the last time I did it as an experiment. So, these are just, again, I've done it 38 times. I change a little bit every single time I do it. And I'm going to go through my Zoom settings in a little more detail because as a guy who's not passionate about tech, uh, I usually just ignore all the Zoom setting stuff. But looking at the dashboard, I was like, shit, I should probably just go in there and pay attention to some of these things. And maybe I'll get a little more bang for my buck when I'm using Zoom. And that means the experience for everybody else will be better. Definitely, my commitment today is to figure out or receive support to figure out the OBS side of things. I feel like that's going to take everything to a whole other level of quality for everybody coming to workshops that I'm putting on. and it'll make my life more fun to facilitate that. And I think that could be cool. I'm just going to encourage Jason right now to make a product that teaches us that, because I'd rather learn from you than this guy who has the swirly audience around his head.
I can't teach you OBS like he can. I've got some other muscles, but he's the famous OBS guy that all the OBSers learn from. Cool. And what you just said, Brad, like I have a notepad, I have an active notepad all the time of the next 30 things that I hope to do. Every time I have an idea about some little micro upgrade, it just goes into a tracker. And then, I sort that by, I have an audio section, video section, a setting section. And just like when I have an extra couple of minutes or an extra $12, like then I do that next thing. So I would just say track like every idea that you have or everything you learn, just like do a little tracker document and get to it when you can.
Amazing. This is super helpful. Does anybody have a final question?
Yeah, Cynthia?
Yeah, hi. I did have a question. So I run live workshops on Zoom. I have evergreen courses, and then I have a YouTube channel. And what I notice is that I do focus a lot on engagement during the live sessions. And then I've attempted at times to repurpose that into content for my YouTube channel. And I have done that, but I've found a lot of times it's easier for me to just record a YouTube video than try to edit so much of the live workshop that also has a very different feeling because I want it. So I was just curious if you've experienced that, or if you have other suggestions of how we can repurpose live content for. Yeah.
We do a ton of that same work. It takes design. Most of that is about foresight and about habits. If I'm calling everybody by name, or if I'm bringing people up on stage all the time, it's like it can impact the usefulness later, and then I need consent forms or media releases, like it gets complex. So if you know that you're going to intend to use it later, the first layer is like design, like really get tight on what's being delivered, how it's being delivered. The other part is there's a lot more gaps because you want to increase your post-production capacity. So I'll come to the end of a section, like thanks so much, that's the end of section 2. Hope it really all served you guys. Okay guys, section 3, let's get started. And suddenly like that's a flexible thing for me. So if you know that I call that nested content, like when there's content that you're using inside of other content and in advance that your hope is to extrapolate bits of it. We do that a lot with nonprofits. We get booked by a lot of nonprofits who will host virtual and hybrid events. So let's say it's a hybrid event, there's 70 people in the room. Most nonprofits that I know of do not have on their YouTube channel a video of their executive director talking about what they do. Like the 101 level of marketing, like I cannot figure out what you guys do in a video way. If I'm a video person and I want to watch a 2-minute video of somebody talking about what you do, a lot of them don't have that. And so I always encourage multiple layers of nested content inside of, like, say, a day long. It's more difficult inside of short form content, but like when you get into like the more hours you have, the more flexible you are for nested. So in a day long, I'll be looking for multiple 3 to 5 minute nested talks inside of a day long, plus testimonials inside of the day long. And we design all of that in advance, build that into the run of show, know exactly when it's happening, and then create the pauses. So the MC will say, ladies and gentlemen, so excited to introduce you to our executive director, Gene. And there's a pause, and Gene waits, and the MC walks off the stage, and Gene walks on. Hi, everybody. My name's Gene. I'm so excited to talk to you about Western Canada Wilderness Committee and the work that we've been doing. It's a rare treat to be able to share with you like this, and as you know, it's a timely time to protect big trees. Let me begin. And she just launches in knowing that that's a video. That's a 3-minute video that we're cutting out. And she ends with the same thing. There's a distinction that I call the shit sandwich, which is start strong, end strong. The middle has a lot of room for muddiness. Like if you can get away with so much crap in the middle if you have a really strong opening and a strong closing. So when speakers are planning nested content, I often have them focus on how they're going to open and how they're going to close. If you nail the shit sandwich, like it's okay if you get a little fluffy in the middle or you're not, or you deviate, but then you're like, so listen, big trees matter. I hope we can all agree. This is the work that we're doing to do it. I hope you'll join on. Visit us today at westerncanadawilderness.com and we'll see you in the trees. It's like a strong closing can tie off a very loose, moshy presentation. So nested content, shit sandwich. Um, be careful not to use too much customization. What venue I'm in, what year it is, what month, what be careful. We have here like teleprompters and stuff so that we can make sure that people stick to their plan. Like, so I can push up a PowerPoint to the screen, or we can actually use the teleprompter. If you're free flowing, it gets harder and harder. Like if you're just riffing, it can become really difficult to pull something from that works. But if you've put in the design time and you're like, module 1, this is how I'm doing it. There's going to be 2 shares from 2 people. I'm going to end really strong. Here's my ending. And you plan that in advance and you have some notes somewhere. You can likely stick to that script and you can likely create a strong nested piece that's usable for you. And the other thing is that nested, like if you're intending it to last longer, so shelf life, like the lifespan. Are we frozen? Oh,
We're back.
oh, great. It's so funny. We've been having internet glitches in this whole building, and this morning the internet guy is coming to help fix it, and I think we're going to run a whole new line across the street because I just can't have variable internet here. In nested content, if you hope that the shelf life of your content will last a little while, that you're going to push up to YouTube and it has a bit of a shelf life.
Did he freeze? Am I frozen?
Hey, Brad, turn off your video.
You're not frozen, Bradley, but he did freeze again.
That's funny. That's what you get for talking shit about your internet. Yeah, they're cutting you off. Like, you'll be grateful for your shitty internet now, won't you? Oh, that's so strange. Well, we'll see if Jason comes back. My guess is everybody learned a couple things here. There he is. Ah! What were you saying? Was there any final thought that you wanted to finish on there?
Just to tie that off, I was saying that if you want your content to last a little while, the audio and video quality matters. And so, just paying a little bit of extra attention to the production, how you're capturing it, that if somebody finds this on YouTube a year from now, that it stands up.
And microphones are an important thing because a lot of people might not be fully paying attention to the video. They might just be listening. They might be on the go. As you all know, I repurpose so much of my content to become podcasts as well. So that's something to consider as well if you want to repurpose what you're producing with video to have a nice microphone that you might be using. Jason, before you go, I just want to thank Jason for... I threw him on the spot today. I picked him up earlier and I was just like, hey, can I interview you? And he was gracious to come do all this spontaneously. So I just thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
Everybody
Nice to meet
can
y'all.
check Jason out at StreamOfConsciousness.ca
And sunsetlabs.ca.
and sunsetlabs.ca. I'll post both of those. There you go.
Nice to meet y'all.
Yeah, really grateful that you shared. There was so much good learning there. And all you YouTubers out there in the world,
thank
hopefully you
you.
got stuff too.